Welcome to the Wodesman podcast, catching up with all things bushcraft, wild camping and the great outdoors.
So hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Wodesman podcast. Finally back here with Tom, Backgarden and Bushcraft co-host. How are you, my man?
I'm very well, thank you, mate. It's been a really good few weeks. I picked up my little puppy.
Yes,
on
it's been exciting
Sunday.
Times for you.
So, yeah, I've basically been a little puppy dad. So yeah, how about you? How are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you. It's been a busy period, as summer always is for both of us. I know you've just kind of broken up for that period now, and we've been just really busy down this end, doing all sorts, loads of work and planning trips. So actually going away this weekend to do a bit of hunting, which I'm excited for.
Nice.
It's been a good old year or so since I managed to get behind the rifle, but that's just how it goes sometimes. So
is that for deer?
Yes, so doing some deer and hopefully rabbits, a few squirrels. We'll just see what we get. I need to fix my air rifle, but that's another story for another day.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, it's always busy at this time of year. I mean, I broke up, and then a day after the summer holiday started, I'm teaching a course. I've already done that, and it's just been straight into puppy training and things like that. So yeah, it's really nice to actually hear your voice and get to spend a little bit of time just focusing in on talking to you and obviously our lovely listeners.
Yeah, likewise. It's always that case of kind of chasing time, isn't it? Like I said, it's really hard to just focus on so many different aspects of life. Like you said, you're now a married man. You've got yourself a dog. School has been busy for you, and to be honest, even if we're getting out doing bushcraft, it's very rarely for long periods of time. So it's been a long time since we've managed to get behind a campfire, and
it is,
I
and
can't
we're
wait to change that.
Yeah, we need to change it soon, and I've got some woodland management bits I need some help with as well. So your presence would be very welcome.
No, definitely.
So, yeah. But we'll definitely get out soon. But we did go to Thornwood Forge, which was such a good experience, wasn't it?
Oh, it was amazing. I was just going to say I had literally the best time with you there. I think, that was a little reminder of what we had for about a year or two when we started the podcast. We had that really frequent time of like going out and catching up and doing all these different things. And that was a really nice refresher back into that. So,
yeah, absolutely. Because when we started the podcast, I was actually unemployed, so I had loads of time. I was taking a little break. So
yeah, my work's always kind of like a little bit scarce at random times. So it's always one of those hard things to juggle is time. And in fact, talking about Thornwood Forge, I'm going to be popping down to help Sam with a little bit of work on his cottage next week. So there might be a little catch up from me. Yeah. Down there with them, and I know Feared Woods is 20 minutes down the road, so I might even bump into him at some point as well, which is going to be awesome.
Yeah, we'll definitely pass on my best to all those guys because they're fantastic people, and I miss them all. They're a good laugh. So quite jealous I'm not going with you, and I wish we were doing some more forging.
Yes,
but I know
absolutely.
I know you caught up with them at the Bushcraft show, didn't you?
Yes, yeah, and. To be honest, they were really, really busy. Like every time I went over to their stall, it was just they were either had loads of students kind of there doing little course bits, or they just had people there asking about axes. So it was always kind of like waving at Sam and Joe and kind of injecting myself in, then kind of backing out. But it was funny. I actually saw Obi outdoors there.
Yeah.
He was doing a little bit of filming, so a little bit of camera reception going on, filming each other, which was quite good.
Love that. Yeah, I've been out with I bought a kite axe from the guys at Thornwood, and obviously I do a lot of sort of management of the wood, so I'm constantly splitting wood and stacking it so it seasons, and we've definitely got ash dieback in the woods, so I've got a lot of ash trees that get hung up and need taking down, so I've really been putting their kite splitting axe with the integral collar to work. And it's exceeded my expectations. It's a brilliant bit of kit. I'm still a bit precious of it, but I'm keeping that sort of every time I pick it up. I think of our time we had recording that episode with them. It was just great.
Sick. I mean, Did you see that they'd been doing a bit with MCQ, like Mike?
I did.
Uh,
I
yeah,
did.
it's exciting times. So it's good to see them actually go out to Sweden and
Yeah.
yeah, just real dirt time. And actually, Mike had some good
Mm.
feedback about their axes, which was great.
I
So if
bet he
anyone
did.
hasn't seen
Yeah.
that video, um, go and check it out. But yeah, hopefully looking forward to seeing some more stuff from MCQ because he's an OG that's
Yeah.
kind of returned back to the
Oh,
scene, and it would maybe we should ask him to jump on the show and
I'd love
you know
that. He was
do a
a
little
massive
interview.
inspiration to me when I started. Him and Joe Robinette and
Yeah,
Ray Mears, obviously, but it was like them and Bushcraft Bartons were like the four sort of people that really got me into the scene. So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Like, well, it's funny you say that because obviously I was like an OG Ray Mears kind of disciple, I guess you could say, for like a young kid. And then as I got into my, 16 to, well, probably like, yeah, more like 16, 17 to like 22, I was kind of like doing career stuff and going off and, partying and all sorts
Yeah,
of
yeah.
bits. And I had a little separation from bushcraft. But when I came back to bushcraft, it was people like Joe Robinette, MCQ bushcraft that I was picking up on bushcraft and kind of looking at their back catalogue that I'd kind of
Mm.
missed on before, because I'd just been doing it myself and thought I just lived in this world thinking no one did bushcraft. And then when I
Mm.
discovered YouTube kind of had this bushcraft side, I was like, holy dooly, this is great. So yeah, again, it's exactly the same for me, man. I knew it'd be
Yeah.
great to meet him one time.
Oh, I'd love it. I would proper fangirl over him as well. So he'd have to be ready for that.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, talking about Sweden, where Mike is, and
Yes,
Thornwood's trip, you actually had a trip to Sweden, didn't you, recently? You've
I
you've
did.
been over, and
I
you've been
have.
doing something that's very exciting. I was meant to be going with you, but it kind of coincided with a few other plans. The Bushcraft show, which I'd had
Yeah.
commitments to because of some other arrangements and doing some filming there, like for the show, doing a vlog. So
Mm.
yeah, it was a shame, but I think that's the point of this episode today, is just to kind of talk to each other about the trips, because I
Yeah.
also had a river trip. You were doing some canoeing over there, weren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. We thought we'd sort of chat to each other about our trips in the format of helping each other with planning future trips. Because obviously, I went to Sweden, had a great
Yeah.
time. Liam couldn't come because of the Bushcraft show and various other things, but it's definitely somewhere I'd like to go back to, and I'd like to go back there with you. So,
Oh man,
um,
it would be the best. I think that's kind of like, I think that's where we're meant to go next. That is our big thing.
yeah. And it's like there's so much that goes into planning a trip like that, and so we thought we'd look at our different perspectives, because you've been doing a lot of canoeing in sort of the UK,
Yes.
whereas I've
Yeah,
done
loads.
very little in the UK. In fact, I've done a few trips on the Wye Valley, and my first ever canoe
I love the Wye.
experience was me and my dad hiring canoes to go down the Wye Valley, and my dad being
That's
all
brilliant.
cocky and thinking he can canoe really well because he used to do it when he was a kid. Got so carried away with like looking at the river that he didn't see the tree coming, and it knocked him out the boat and capsized the whole canoe. So that was my first
Oh,
experience
no.
of canoeing.
Bless him.
So since then, I've done a fair bit more sort of locally, like hiring canoes on lakes and stuff, just to sort of learn the ropes
Yes.
before. And I obviously did a canoe trip back in the day in Sweden with a guide. I did it with Black Wolf Survival, so Craig, which was a brilliant trip. But having done that and built up my confidence in canoeing after the initial dunking, doing a trip with a guide and then practicing and building up sort of confidence and skills, it enabled me then to go back. So what we thought would be a good idea for an episode was to sort of share some of those experiences with you, but also talk about how we prepare for a trip, the equipment that
Yeah.
we use for canoe tripping that might vary from just going and carrying what we use on our backs.
Yeah.
And just talk about the nuances, really, because there's a lot of skills and crossover between water sports and bushcraft, even as simple as the knots in sailing. I mean, they're useful in the outdoors as well, but canoeing
Yeah.
specifically,
Yeah, definitely.
there's just so much crossover between bushcraft and
Well, that's where a
canoeing.
bow line came from, isn't it? So, like, it's funny you say that, because in the UK, people can kind of a little bit more relaxed into their they're water sports. They kind of just feel like they can just skip that whole step of like they could just jump on the river and it will be fine. But of course, water is like one of the most inhospitable places for humans, to be honest. And you can drown.
It's dangerous.
Yeah, you can drown in such a small amount of water. And I might seem like a bit of an idiot sometimes when I got my helmet strapped to the front of my canoe, and I'm only going down the Y, for example. But let's say the river goes high, or there's a flash flood incident, things go south, or you're going through Simmons Yat, the rocks are a bit more exposed. It doesn't take much to have an accident. That's why they're called an accident, you know.
Yeah, you don't plan for them.
About the whole preparation and planning aspect, and I guess one of the biggest things for me, like in the UK, is always making sure that there's actually good access, which is really hard to do in the UK, funnily enough, because there's not many ways of checking waterways on private property. So you kind of have to go by chance. And of course, in the UK, you're going very linear routed. You're not on big grand lakes that are connected. You're going straight down one water course, and some sections might be navigable, some might not be, but you don't really have many options. You're going point A to point B. You know, so there's a lot more kind of difficulty when it comes to planning, I think, in the UK. But it's those things that people often overlook. They might just think, oh, it's fine, you just get on the river and go. And trust me, on our last trip, we definitely encountered the kind of inhospitable side of the river, so to speak.
Well,
and that's a few spanners in.
Yeah, well, I underestimated that very first time. We're talking like over a decade ago when I fell in the river. I do blame my dad still, but actually it was my first ever real trip video I ever put on my channel. On my YouTube channel. It was my first ever trip away. All the other videos I'd done before then were just me learning the skills of my garden, but I hadn't even thought that actually maybe I need to learn how to canoe. I just didn't even think about it. I was like, I'll learn the bushcraft skills, and then I'd never thought I need to know actually how to use the boat. So I really underestimated it, and then since then I've had instruction. I've done days where I've just hired a canoe and paddled around a reservoir just to learn how to use the boat, and then I've got to the point where I've gone out with instructors and taking kids out. So I've been just assisting with instructors, and I've been a member of the school staff, taking them down. So I've done the Thames, I've done lakes and stuff with kids, but I've just been there listening. So I've not been responsible for the kids learning about canoeing. I've been just listening and using it as a learning experience myself, because the instructors were taking the kids out as part of an activity day. I just sort of tagged along and had my own boat, and it was great. I learned so much listening to them and asking them questions when we were like having lunch breaks and stuff. And I'd never underestimate the water again, because I made that mistake and I learned from it. Yeah,
absolutely. I had an experience pretty similar to probably what the kids, you're accompanying have, when I was up in the Lake District as a young adult, not a young adult, sorry, as a young child. And to be honest, it was one of the best things, because the instructor got me and my sister out on the lake, paddling all sorts of different craft, like kayaks, canoes, all sorts, like dipping into the river out through shallow parts, deep parts, in high winds. And although I don't remember everything, it was good to have that kind of, I guess it was just an insight to it. So it kind of knocked that fear, because a lot of people have sea legs, you know, they get on a boat and they kind of instantly get the wobbles, and that you've got to just be confident and calm and collected.
You do.
And there's even like little nuances to packing and just preparing your boat so it makes your life a lot easier, which I think we'll go into a little bit down this.
We will down the line. I mean,
it's right what you said, how bushcraft or canoeing is a wider part of bushcraft that many people won't even look at as a skill. They just see it as a mode of transport, for example. But it encompasses a whole utility of different aspects of bushcraft within that. Like you said, you've got knot tying, you've got literally packing, planning your kit and everything you've got to eat for days and days and days. You've got the safety aspect of things, first aid, navigating. You're relying on a hell of a lot of things to be packed into a boat and a vessel, aren't you?
Yeah.
And of course,
And as you said, it's like if you do get the wobbles, you know, you need to be able to know how to deal with it. I mean, I luckily, my family are very big into their sailing. So from a young age, I've always been out on sailing boats. But
yes,
I actually had a bit of fear about boats as a result of that, because from when I was young, we ended up getting stranded on a boat at a reservoir, but during a force 5 or 6 gale with thunder and lightning that rolled in, and they made us abandon the boats and swim to a rescue craft. That was the last time I sailed before I started doing canoes. So I had this like slight fear of boats before getting back into canoeing. So I really had to learn. Yeah, I really had to learn to be comfortable in the boat. And now I love it. I love canoeing. I think it's brilliant.
It's such a graceful kind of feeling, isn't it?
It really is. And someone showed me just about how stable a canoe is as long as you keep like your head central. And it really made a difference to me, like the fact that you can move your body and stuff, and if your center of balance is still centered to the boat, you'll be fine. And then
it's almost gyroscopic, isn't it?
Yeah. And that was really, really interesting. But we'll get on to it when we talk about my trip in a bit. But the weather was quite brutal in a couple of days, and you really had to be sensible. So I think the first thing that before we talk about why canoeing and kayaking is such a great thing to do as a bushcrafter, I think we'll just summarize the first thing is know what you're getting into. And if you're not comfortable with a boat, before you do a big trip, hire it on a reservoir somewhere safe to learn the ropes. Know how to handle the craft before you do anything else. That's the first step. And if you're not comfortable, get some instruction, because I wish I'd done that before I made the mistake of capsizing a canoe halfway down the Wye. The Wye? So yeah, that's sort of the first point. But I sort of wanted to talk about why canoeing fits so well with bushcraft, and we have sort of already touched on this briefly.
Definitely.
But my favourite Ray Mears film isn't actually any of his long series or anything. It was a YouTube video that he released with a filmmaker called We Belong to It. And it's a beautiful film. If you've not seen it, it's all shot in slow motion. It's got Ray doing a voiceover, and he carves a canoe paddle. He's in the middle of Canada. It's just, it's like everything that bushcraft is to me is covered in that video. And it's brilliant. He talks about how bushcraft is just everything is just right. It's not too big. It's not too small. It's just perfect. And
fit for purpose,
he also
isn't it?
fit for purpose. And he talks about all these nuances of bushcraft and the up and coming generation of younger people getting into bushcraft and all that stuff. That's all brilliant. But he does talk about canoeing a lot. And he refers to it in two ways. I just wanted to quote. This is Ray Mears speaking, not me, because I rewatched it yesterday because I just love that clip. I watch it every time I need a bit of inspiration. He calls canoeing an honest way of travel, and he talks about how it's fun, it's relaxing, but it also makes you ache. You have to earn your stripes with it. But then he goes on to call it the greatest human invention of all time. And
absolutely, have to agree with that.
From Grandad Ray, you know,
absolutely.
Like that's from the big man himself.
I think, you know, it's one of these things that just absolutely transformed the way people could travel and the access. And I mean, that's why we love it, isn't it? At the end of the day, you know, the places you can reach in a canoe, whether it is on the English rivers, the places you can explore, the sights that you can see, and the different dynamic that it gives the landscape. It's just unbelievable. It can transform a landscape like that.
It really
stepping
can.
off the bank into the river.
Yeah.
You know, it's and I think it's a beautiful quote from Ray. You know, to say, like you said, such an honest way of travel. I mean, every bit of effort is down to you. Down to
every blister, every aching
nose.
muscle.
Oh yes.
And he says it's a personification of bushcraft. He explains that by saying, well, humans learn to work with their environment to create a craft that will allow them to float on it, to have access to places they couldn't get to before, to food sources they didn't have access before. And that goes on to the sort of indigenous links, the cultures and the history that it links to. So your birch bark canoes.
And you think of the grand amount of effort just to harvest the birch bark, let alone to then harvest the
Yeah.
spruce root or the
Uh-huh.
the pitch or
Yeah.
all of the different elements to get to the final product is
And then
absolutely
make the
incredible.
ore, the whittling the ore.
Yeah,
The,
exactly.
yeah, or another culture, for example, looking at the dugout canoes or
I was just about to
coracles,
say,
or,
yeah. And
you
we've had the
know,
pleasure of seeing a dugout canoe being done in person. That was
we have
quite a few bushcraft shows. We've seen some progressions
yeah,
of
we got
different
to
ones.
go. We got to go at that, didn't we?
We
That was
did.
great.
That was fantastic, and yeah, it gives you huge respect again to that, because it's again what Ray is going there by saying it's a personification of bushcraft. It's literally people turning a fallen tree into a vessel that can then allow them to go out and collect food or explore new. They're pioneering, and it really, they were the first pioneers, I guess.
Yeah.
The people who, the water people.
Yeah, and you look at like the history of places like Canada, America, like fur trade era, 18th, 19th century.
Oh,
You got the voyageurs going down the river in canoes with their furs to trade. Time. It's just like making frontier outposts and camps. It's all reliant on that means of transport, that canoe. And obviously there are plus sides and negatives to that in that period of history, as with any period of history. There's violent times and dark times, but the means of canoeing opened up the wilderness for people to explore. And then obviously the use of canoes as a recreational tool rather than a survival tool or a means of transport has obviously developed as a more modern aspect, but it's still just as relevant today, just for a different reason.
Yeah, and I think of course, over here again, like I say, in the UK we generally use it as recreation, but then you still get people who do use these craft out on lakes or lochs up in Scotland, and they're fishing from them. They're catching mackerel, they're catching. They might be just doing it for sport, for example, but some people are using these crafts still very much similarly. Very much similarly to how our ancestors would have been using them. So it's I don't think that connection will ever go. As long as there is a canoe on the water, I think there'll always be that bushcraft element to it and that kind of ancestral link. And I think, like you said, people might not be transporting goods the same way they were in the fur trade, using big 40-foot bloody birch bark canoes with 15 people in them.
And poling them down the rapids and things.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, they were brave people, because it, again, it takes one wrong turn and the whole thing's done for. And this was in a time when helmets weren't weren't accessible. I don't believe there was any kind of
they couldn't just ring
head
for
protection.
help if they went in, could they?
No, I'm not even sure there was buoyancy aids at that kind of time. Maybe some very very primitive kind of attempts at them.
Yeah,
but that's
I highly
something.
doubt it. It would have mainly been like woolen clothes, which will obviously get like heavy, don't they, if they get wet and.
But that's it again. Like how putting ourselves in risky situations does pioneer different spaces. So it's it's funny, and of course you got like I said, touching on fishing from canoes. Not only that, but another point is it allows you to travel great amounts of distance, doesn't it?
It does. You're never going to get as far walking, are you?
No, literally. Unless there's countless portages, things can really slow you down at that point, which we did encounter on our latest river trip, and I'm not sure if it was the same over in Sweden. But the
we
sheer
didn't have
distance,
any portages. We didn't need. The lake was so vast that because it actually goes up from Sweden, you can get into Norway just on the same lake. That. So the distance.
An illegal immigrant.
It's literally just vast. So we didn't actually have to portage at all, which was really nice. But we put our muscles to use in other ways, mainly fighting against the wind and the waves.
I can imagine. And portaging is, again, another whole different type of aspect to canoeing that often gets overlooked, and it's something our ancestors would have had to battle with as well. If you think, we often take it for granted that they'd just be going down a river, but there's many times that you'd have to disembark and take all of your gear out and put it back in, and then that goes back to how different styles of packing became and how different types of packs were influenced. For example, like the Frost River packs.
I had one for a while that had a head strap and you could
Yeah.
put the strap around your head, and it just takes some of the weight on the forehead, and it's just nuts. It's really cool, but it's it's just a different way of looking at equipment.
It is.
But yeah, I mean, it allows you to go bigger distances, but it also gives you more opportunity to take things into those wild places. So it gives you access to places you might not be able to walk into. It gives you access to places there aren't roads, but it also allows you to carry your equipment in without having to have it all in one rucksack. So you could carry a stove in, you could carry a hot tent, you could carry what you need. I mean, we'll go on to the equipment that I recommend for sort of a trip later on, but we used waterproof duffels, and we had one barrel between the two canoes, and we just switched it between, and in that barrel we had our food, which was in sort of a vacuum thing. But yeah, it's just, it allows you to carry your stuff in, but at the same time it doesn't disturb the environment. It's not like you've got a big boat with an engine on it.
No, exactly.
You see wildlife, you hear birds, and you can go calmly and slowly, and it's quite meditative, but you see the environment properly because it doesn't disturb it, which I think is why it's such a great thing. It's such a great form of travel.
Yes, yeah, 100%. I have to agree with that. And it's like one of the most inobtrusive kind of manners of transport. I mean, there's been many a time where I've been canoeing past, and I've just people walking on the bank and they haven't even noticed you're going past. That's all. And you can see how easily it would have been to stalk prey or hunt or sneak up on different people in the past on different villages.
On a deer. It wasn't a deer. I thought it was a deer, but it was a lady in a fur hat. I thought it was a deer's backside just poking out of the undergrowth. It turns out there was actually a hiking trail at this point of Sweden. So I loudly go, "There's a deer over there!" And this face turned around and looked at me, and I was like, "It's not a deer, it's a woman."
I love that.
Quite embarrassing, but yeah. But she hadn't realised we were there, so me shouting "deer" at her really loudly made her jump out of her skin.
That's so funny. And it's it shows you how easy it is to stalk up on different prey. And like you said, because you're able to bring in different bits of kit, and yes, although you might have to portage them at points, but the capability of then bringing in a bigger haul, for example, is exacerbated. So you can bring in more fish, you can bring in a few more deer, you can pack these things, you can bring firewood to a place where there's no firewood. So
we had to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
We got to an island. Yeah, we got to an island, and we'd been beaten to it by a large group of like 6 canoes. Right. And obviously it was quite a popular spot for canoeists to camp. And the whole island was bare. There was no dead standing left. It had all been cut down and burned. Basically everything that you could burn, people had obviously already used. And at that point, it was blowing a real hoolie outside. So me and Jonty, we went, the 4 of us. So me and Emma, my wife, went, and then her stepbrother and his fiance were the 4 of us that went. So me and Jonty jumped in the canoe, and we headed for the nearest shore. And then I found some dead standing trees. I felled one. There was lots of sort of washed up wood, filled the canoe to the bows with firewood. And we were actually then able to share it with some of the other campers, because none of them really fancied it, going out and getting their own firewood. So we actually were able to there was a couple of really nice Swedes that were there. We gave them some firewood as well. But I'll tell you what, getting back was a slog, because we were then against the waves and against the wind. And it was a kilometre back. So the nearest shore was a kilometre from the island. And it was a kilometre into the wind with waves. And the second you stop paddling, you get blown back 10 metres. Yeah, exactly. The waves were blowing over the bow, like blowing water over the bow. So we had to keep it cutting through the waves. And we did get back, but it was a burn in the
tacking
arms,
on an angle so you didn't go in.
It was the right kind of type B fun. It was exhausting and slightly tense.
I love that though.
But it was worth it. And then we had firewood and we cooked. And the reason we needed the firewood as well is because all of our food needed cooking. and we'd bought a gas bottle, but we
Yeah.
hadn't checked it had a different fitting than our gas.
Oh no.
But it had like a Swedish version of the thread, so it
I
wouldn't
had a
thread
similar
onto our gas
situation.
stove. And I was like, right, so now we're reliant on fire, so we
Yeah, of course.
we only could cook on fire, and without firewood,
Oh,
we
dear.
couldn't have a fire. So there was no choice; we had to go and get firewood.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the sort of adventure. But you're right; it's a great craft for going out and getting resources, and
Yeah.
actually spotting resources. Number of times we ended up stopping the canoes and pulling it in for me to go up the bank into the forest,
Exactly.
because I'd
This
spotted
happens all
fallen
the time.
birch or
Yeah.
other resources that I wanted to harvest.
That's how it gives you a different perspective on everything. You see so many different things from that angle, from the river, and it gives you the opportunity to quickly like tuck in and stuff, or grab
Yeah.
something from the overhanging branches. Or
Yeah.
it's brilliant. It really is, like you say. And I had a similar situation. I was kind of half reliant on fire for my last trip, and I brought all my mess burners, put my bottle next to my mess bowl, and then for some reason the next day I thought I'd filled it up, so I just grabbed the container, and it only had about this much mess in the bottom.
Been there.
Luckily it boiled all the water for the trip, so that was fine. But
That's good.
for meals it was a bit of a pain, because we decided to luckily I'd packed a few dehydrated meals just as emergency, so we managed to live off those basically. But I had planned to do like a jacket potato and a few bits, and cook a steak up and stuff like that, but I had to end up getting like a little portable barbecue from a shop, doing that on the beach. But it worked,
Yeah,
an
yeah.
absolute treat, and I just bagged it up and got rid of it. But yeah, it was one of those hilarious moments where just even though you're prepared, you can forget one tiny little thing, or one
Yeah.
little minute thing can cause a hiccup. And again, like
Yeah.
you say, you get to an island, there's no firewood. You've then got to go over the lake, which is then exposing you to more risk than you'd anticipated, like doing. You know, you probably weren't expecting to go like fully a kilometre across a lake.
And that was
know,
after
in
a full day of
headwind.
paddling as well. I mean,
Yeah.
we weren't doing massive distances because we were there to experience it, and we wanted to stop and explore and go off on foot and do that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
we weren't covering masses, but we still were doing kilometres, like a lot of
Yeah.
kilometres a day.
And
so
that's when
to
things
add
can
on
turn
a kilometre
south.
there and a kilometre back when you're already tired and you've been
Yeah.
fighting the wind all day, you're constantly risk assessing, and actually that in itself is a bushcraft skill, is
Exactly.
learning how
That's what I
to
was gonna
minimize
say.
risk. And it's like we had essentials in dry bags. I had a survival kit with me, I had a ditch kit with me, I had my
man.
Garmin InReach clipped to my buoyancy aid.
Yeah, which
So
you
if
got
we
just
got
for this
into
trip,
trouble,
didn't you?
I bought it specifically for the trip, because I knew
Yeah.
the area. I've been there before, but I wasn't taking any chances. You know,
No.
I was there with
Not when you're with your wife
my
and
family,
your
and I
your
just-
family, exactly.
Yeah, if one of us got into trouble, I wanted to be able to send out a signal. I mean, obviously, didn't need it, but it's better to have it and not need than need and not have. So
Absolutely.
that's the mantra I always live by. So
Yeah, 100%. And it goes down to even, you know, PPE. There's again, a few people who canoe as a group decide not to wear buoyancy aids at certain times. I'm not really for that. I'm a very much always have a buoyancy aid when you're in a vessel.
I agree.
And when you're doing a canoe trip, have a helmet. That's just me personally.
Yeah, we didn't
and
have helmets in
I
Sweden
generally
because we
advocate
were-
it. But if you're not going rapids, it's
Yeah, there were no
generally
rapids because
fine.
we were on a lake.
Yeah.
So we didn't have helmets, but buoyancy aid was non-negotiable. We were having that on at all times. It's
Yeah,
just not worth
absolutely.
the risk.
No, and
if
over
you're
here
on a
in
river,
the UK, yeah,
if you're on a river,
don't know
I'd
what
be wearing
debris.
a helmet.
Yeah, well, the thing is, you don't know what debris or bits and all sorts of bits of civil engineering have been fell down. I mean, I remember.
To be honest, sorry, you go.
I was going to say, I remember going over one bridge, going under a bridge, and looking down, and the old bridge was under there, about this far away from the bottom of my boat. Like the whole brick bridge was down in the river.
That's mad.
And I was
Yeah,
thinking, cool,
yeah.
if you jumped off that bridge to jump in and you didn't realise, that would be a bloody painful.
it.
Yeah, well, it probably would be, by accident.
Yeah.
And of course, if you accidentally capsized at that one point,
Hit your head.
it only takes a few seconds of being unconscious or knocked out temporarily, and you're taking in water, which is not good. And especially
No.
over here, just quickly touching into safety, I know we'll go into that bacteria. You've got to be very hygiene aware.
Oh yeah.
Which is something we take for granted because our ancestors must have had a very hard time doing that, albeit their waters were probably a lot cleaner.
They probably were, and they wouldn't have had chemical pollutants and stuff to worry about,
No.
in industrial runoff and things, and farmyard runoff. But I take your approach, the using helmets and stuff. I look like a real nerd when I go hiking in mountainous regions, and if there's any likelihood of me doing even the most simple of scrambles, I bought a climbing helmet. And if there's a likelihood of me doing loose scree, or scrambling of any kind, even if it's stuff people would like scoff at and think it's easy, I will try and bring that helmet at the bottom of my bag or strap it to the outside, because I've been there where people have been above me and scree has come past and I didn't have a helmet. Second I got home, I went and ordered a helmet. So it's the same with any chance there's a rapid and you could be chucked in, there's rocks, you need that helmet on. It's not worth your ego. You'd seriously, people would really regret it if they got hit by a bit of falling rock or fell in on a canoe on a rapid and hit an exposed bit of rock. It's just not worth the risk.
Yeah, and one thing that always sits with me sometimes, and again, it's just my opinion. I would hate to be the one who was advocating not to do that and something to happen, or to be the person who never said something about it. So, if you can be that guy who just says, you sure you don't want to, try and advocate for safety.
At the end of the day, it's everyone's individual choice, isn't it?
Absolutely.
But I would choose to be on the safe side.
Yeah, and for me personally, I've had enough surgery on my facial area that I don't need any more reconstruction. And
You've had enough surgery on like the majority of your body, haven't you?
Yeah, and I just don't think it would. I don't think it would do me any favors knocking a big stone against my chin or something.
No.
But hey, they're all things that people might not think about when they go into canoeing, and I think that probably is the next thing that we wanted to just touch on. Really,
for sure. Because we've obviously covered the reasons why canoeing is great, and having bushcraft skills just enables you as a canoeist to go further. Like you can. If you lose your oar, you can carve another one. If there's a leak, you can patch it up with natural glues and things like that. And so having the bushcraft skills enables you to be a safer and more efficient traveller in a wild environment.
I like that point about patching up as well, because there's something, again, not many people would think about. What happens if your vessel goes down? We had a little incident where one of the canoes started to fill up with water because as we were trying to get it over an obstacle, as we lifted up the front, the back end dipped underwater and started pulling in a bit of water, and then because of the weight was then shifted, one of the bags slid from the front down, which caused even more drag. And honestly, the weight of that, I had to quickly jump over 2 boats to try and get the back end to hold it up. We managed to get the bag out, but the rate they fill up with water is astronomical. So being able to repair them is essential. And if you lose that boat and you're on a trip like Sweden, you are completely stranded.
Yeah.
And then it becomes
even
a proper
just
situation.
Absolutely, it becomes a serious situation. But even like improvising a bail, like it's those sort of skills that a bushcrafter can improvise. You can improvise as a bushcrafter, so it makes you a better canoeist. But we wanted to sort of talk about planning trips. So we had some general tips, and also just wanted to talk about you planning your river trips, me planning this trip to Sweden. Now I want to give the caveat, I've been to this lake in Sweden before, so I knew where I was going. When I went 10 years ago, the guide, Black Wolf, they did all the organisation. We actually flew into a different country this time and got different trains and everything. So we had to work that all out again this time. We didn't just copy the same exact trip that I'd done before. We did slightly different routes, but we were in the same area. We stayed at similar campsites. Some of the campsites were the same ones we stayed at. So I had a background knowledge of the area. But still, I did my research as if it was a new trip to me.
Important, because I think both of those bits that you mentioned are important, as in having gone there before. I think that's actually a really good thing to have done, which isn't always possible, obviously, if it's in a different country. But especially when you're in the UK, when you're confined to just doing a river and it is point A to point B, try and scout it beforehand. I think that makes a massive difference. But carry on. Sorry, I just wanted to throw that in there because it's a really good point you made.
No. I just think it's. I needed to have been there before just for that confidence to go and do an abroad trip. And when I first did that trip, I was incredibly anxious. I'm a completely different person than I am now. I needed the guide at that time in my life to have someone there to be in charge, whereas obviously on this one I was kind of in charge.
On your behalf.
I was the person navigating, I was the one lighting the fires, I was the one setting up the tarps for everybody. I was the only one really that knew the tarp knots, so that was 4 people's tarps and hammocks I was basically putting up. I mean, they were everyone was competent, everyone pulled their weight, but certain things I had the knowledge to do.
Well, this little fine tuning,
the tarps,
exactly,
for example. But by the end of the trip, like Emma, she learnt the knots. She was like putting up the tarps. So it's just one of those things. So I needed that initial trip when I was less of a confident person. I needed to go with a guide. Whereas now I don't feel like it's an essential thing to have a guide for me in that area once I had that background knowledge. But if I was going out and doing a trip to Canada, to like, one of my dreams is eventually to do like a float plane trip. But my first trip there, I'd probably want a guide.
You'd be silly not to.
You'd be silly not to. And the outfitters and stuff in these remote places are so helpful. But
and you're not talking about places where there's really established trails. It's not like the AZT or anything like that.
I mean,
there will be trails, but it's somewhere where you can easily get lost. And you do hear tales of people going out there and they are very prepared and they still get into trouble. And having local knowledge is such a vast insight because, like you said, the reason for not going on your own initially was due to the natural anxiety of, I'm going to a different country in a vessel that if I fall in, I'm just in the middle of nowhere on my own in a different, completely foreign country. Do you know what I mean? It's not kind of like the UK over here. There's a bit more to, okay, you're maybe 10, 15 minutes away from the nearest residence or road or footpath.
You're never miles.
There's always cell signal, there's always phone signal. There's, but still, like we said before, you can easily get into trouble. And I think it's, like you said, looking into the area beforehand, looking at maybe getting a guide or going out with a trip outfitters. I think very, very wise advice. And even here in the UK, you can go up to the lakes and do similar things. I don't think it's written off here in the UK.
Hikes.
Absolutely. It's definitely not written off here.
Like if I was going to walk Crib Goch, like I've done a lot of hill walking and stuff, but Crib Goch, I'd probably, the first time I do Crib Goch, I would want it to be with a guide. Because
someone who
they
knows
the
the
nuances.
walk. Yeah, exactly. And it's the same. It's the same when you're abroad. It's the same when you're in the UK. And it was definitely a bit different for us. Like over here on my recent trip, we weren't really able to do much more research than basically look at the river through the maps, kind of local folklore online and different angling clubs and different canoe forums where people have paddled different stretches. There's a really good forum called Song of the Paddle. Fantastic place if you want to look at different river sections that people have paddled and get kind of their reviews on it as well. But yeah, over here we're very much limited to stuff like that, and a lot of the rivers are very privately owned, and there's different sections that people don't like you canoeing down. There's not really that many navigable sections of river.
No.
And if you find yourself in one that people aren't used to you paddling in, suddenly it becomes a whole level of drama when you come across weirs and things like that to battle, because that's one of the most awful things over here in the UK. We've got weirs absolutely everywhere, and it throws a whole lot of extra organisation into trips over here that I think you might not have to battle in other places like Sweden, for example. But then with Sweden, you've got the whole other aspect of, like you said, you've got probably to hire out 90%, or would it be 60% of your kit did you have to hire out while you're over there, like canoes and stuff?
So we hired the canoes, the barrels, and the life jackets.
Okay.
And that was actually it. because
Okay, so that's not too
I was
bad then.
incredibly organised with my packing. And I sent kit lists to the others that were coming on, and both Jonty and Katie are both knowledgeable as well. So they had most of the stuff, and Katie was brilliant. She was very organised, and she was great. She's quite outdoorsy as well, so she was a brilliant person to have along. But yeah, it was just being prepared and organised. But the problem with the stuff we hired, that was the mistake I made. I didn't check the connection of the gas buffle, and that would have saved us a lot of time in the mornings because we were having to light little firebox stoves and stuff in the morning to get a coffee and.
Not
things
easy
like that.
for you to go and get a replacement out there. Whereas here in the UK, you might actually paddle through a town where you could say, "All right, let's get out and go to the nearest camping shop or whatever," which is a viable option. Again, obviously, if you're up in the ruggeds of Scotland and stuff, you're getting much more wild and remote, so it's not as accessible. But I mean, that's the thing with Sweden and different places. They've probably got a bit more lenient wild camping tolerance as well. Again, that's why a lot of our wilder trips on canoes would be in places like Scotland. The UK is quite inhospitable, I'd say, for canoeists.
Yeah, I would say wherever you're going, whether it's the UK or abroad, just do the legwork. So look at the local laws, the local rules, and also what's sort of permissible. Because obviously in the UK, there's very limited access and limited camping options. But even in Sweden, there are restrictions. So some of the area we were canoeing through was a designated sort of protected area for wildlife. So you had to pay for a conservation fee. And then that enabled you to camp in the conservation areas, but in specific sites called danos. And they have like a wooden shelter, which were great to camp in some nights, actually. Just chuck a bivvy bag down in there and you've got a nice dry place. They have a fire pit. It's brilliant, really, because you pay a conservation fee that helps protect the whole park. And then you've got a place that you can camp and have a fire. And it's safe because it's contained in a fire pit. And it stops people having fire scars everywhere because there's specific places to do it. And obviously, there are a couple of people have built fireplaces in the Dano areas that are not the official fireplace, but they're still a lot safer than just having a fire wild. And it's still in the Dano site, and they're often built on bedrock and things like that to contain them. So check the local rules and accessibility. As you said, the access is really important. Can you get the canoe out in certain places? Can you camp in that area? Where are the local campsites that you can get to? If you're in the UK, it's probably a matter of like, is there a campsite I can hire, pay to camp in with my canoe, that sort of thing? Or is there a place that's suitable for a wild spot? It's just a good idea to do the research before you get there and just not rely on winging it. Oh, I can't hear you. Yeah,
Hello?
you're back. Hello?
Am I back? Hello.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, one of the biggest difficulties over here is actually the camping side of canoeing. If you're going on a canoe camp, and it's very much a case of if you're willing to do a little bit of kind of trespass, I guess, in some circumstances where you've got to get out and go around an obstacle. Let's say a tree's fell over and you are going on a point A to point B multi-day trip and you're already a day into the trip. There's no way you can go back over the 6 weirs. You can't get out in the middle of, the countryside where there's not a road for 2 miles. So you kind of have to get your canoe out on the bank and go round and over a fence and then back into the river. And yes, it is trespass, but you try to do it as minimally impacting as possible.
Yeah.
But it's something that's always the off-putting aspect of it for a lot of people. And again, it gets to when it's coming in dark and this stretch of river has no campsites and you're on it. You kind of got to pick a little location to camp. Otherwise, you're staying in the boat all night, which is not the most comfortable for two. It's not safe, and it's not the most comfortable for 2 people either. That's one of the beauties of, again, Sweden with their Dano sites, and I think it's something that the UK could very much learn from. Although I
really think so. It's such a good system.
I just don't know if we're past that point now with development. The access is kind of so hard over here, but
Yeah.
even I guess with Dano sites, you can still get into the same scenarios where you might assume that it's free and then turn up and be like, oh my god, it's like overwhelmed. And you had that experience.
It did happen, yeah, and it happened on the worst weather day. So
Yeah.
these two Swedes, they weren't the friendliest. Most of the Swedish people we met there were the loveliest people, but these two were a
Nice.
bit gruff. They were not friendly or welcoming. They were the ones
Okay.
that hoarded the firewood on that first island, which
no.
was fine. But then they then beat us to the next two sites. So we then had to wild camp nearby. So we were still on the Dano's land, but we couldn't use the shelter or the fire pit. But we were grounded by the weather, so we couldn't go any further. It wouldn't have been safe. So sort of needs must, really.
Yes.
There was no offer for us to come and shelter. We had like the heaviest rain. I can't even describe it. It was biblical. My video doesn't do it justice. Poor Emma was not well that day. So she wasn't well. The rain was coming down. We were stranded because of the wind, because it was dangerous levels of
you
of
sent
gusts.
me a video and it was ripping.
So we got to the nearest site and then we stopped because it just wouldn't have been safe to carry on. And the weather got so bad, I ended up putting up 4 tarps just to enclose this tiny little area. We had there was a little fire pit there with stones that someone had obviously been in a similar situation. I built up a big fire in this fire pit. We just huddled around it and tried to dry off as best as possible. And the water was coming off in the bucket loads off the tarp.
Yeah,
it was just
I can imagine.
mad. And everyone was cold because we'd been on the water. Everyone was wet because of the rain on the water. So we dried out by the fire. And then the second we had a break in the rain, we moved the tarps to our individual tarp setups. People that were cold got in their hammocks and re-warmed slowly. So the fire was the sort of initial thing. We got a hot food and drink into everybody.
Grace as well.
Started to dry them out by the fire, and then the second we got a chance, it was into dry clothes, sleeping bags, warm up, calm down, and sort it out. And it's just like knowing how to deal with a situation like that. Like if we'd not done that, you could have got someone getting shivery, get hypothermic.
Absolutely.
So you got to be sensible, and it was real. It wasn't play bushcraft. It was This is real. I need to light this fire for everybody here. And it's a good feeling when you've done that and you've contributed to the group. So
you all muck in. We had a similar experience on the Y a few years ago where we could not find a place to get out. The river was really low. It was one of the hottest summers, and the banks were so high we couldn't find a place to get out. And it was getting on in the day, and dark started really coming in, and we really had to find a place to get out. And where we did get out, it was starting to turn tidal, so it was really silty. And everyone had to really muck in doing like rigging to get the boats up, and it was an absolute nightmare. But needs must at some points. But it's being prepared for those situations and not pushing it past the point. There's no point in boasting, is there? There's no point in having this big bravado about, I did this many miles, or I went and I did this rapid without a helmet, or I only took one item with me of first aid, or it's just not worth the risk. Honestly, I've seen so many situations in simple scenarios where it's gone wrong on English rivers, or not gone wrong, but could have easily gone wrong. Again, like we said, when the boat started filling up with water, very easy could have led to a sunk boat with all the kit. Then it's 2 people are out of a boat. It creates an obstacle in the river. Then it's just a whole load of nightmares, or you could have an accident from that. If someone knocks their head in a river, and if someone knocks their head and they're in a river, despite your best efforts, you've even then got to get them up out of the bank. If you're in Sweden, you've got to look after them if they're shivery or hypothermic. And then, for example, if there's no firewood and you found yourself in that situation, having the backup of saying, well, I've collected some timber along the way, I've collected these materials, I've sourced them. That's all the big part of the picture. It's when everything comes together.
I was constantly squirreling.
Yeah, well, it might
Just-
seem like we're being a bit kind of like, oh, they're
It's
too obsessed
dangerous,
with the
yeah,
safety
yeah.
side
But
of
actually-
it, but no, we go out and enjoy it, and we don't let them side of things put us off from it. But you've got to actually accept that they are a reality of it.
Yeah, I think we use our podcast as well as a way of sort of raising these safety things that people might not think about, because
Yeah,
it isn't so dangerous that it should put you off. It's not. It's no more dangerous than, crossing the road if you're prepared.
exactly.
But
Yes.
if you're not prepared, things can go wrong, and you might get lucky 10 times. You might get lucky 100 times, but it only has to go wrong once. So
Yeah.
it's worth thinking about how can you minimize risk, because at the end of the day, you're not doing bushcraft to boast, or you shouldn't be doing. If you're doing bushcraft to boast or to boost your ego, you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Exactly.
Same with hiking, in my opinion. It's like it doesn't. I read a really good quote. It was on an outdoor magazine that I follow online. I can't remember the name of the magazine now, but they said your hike doesn't have to impress anyone else. You just have to enjoy it yourself.
It's
And
meant to
I thought
impress
that was
you, like,
really good.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole point of going out there is to put an impression on you. You know, you want to go out there and see the sights. You know, it's your eyes that are taking it in, your soul that's getting the relief of freedom for that little slice when you're out there. And you know, I think a lot of people in the outdoor space, and obviously the outdoor space has blown up massively. We have to admit that it's gone huge. But there was a really good thing that I think it was one of my old vicars said to me, and he was like, if you do something for charity, or if you're really doing something for the real reason, you basically don't even tell anyone. You just get on with it.
Yeah, you don't need to.
You know, you don't go and donate £10,000 and then be like, hey everyone, look at what I donated. So it's kind of, do you know what I mean? It's kind of defeats the whole point. I mean,
Yeah.
it's nice to be recognised for doing things out of goodwill, and I'm not painting people who donate or say they've donated as being bad people, but it's the
You're
same in
saying
the
the
outdoor space. There's a lot of
motivation.
a lot of impressionability in it, and you know, I don't think by being over prepared or by highlighting awareness, I think it's very important. I don't think
I do as well.
I don't think people should be advocating doing things dangerously, and I think
No.
a lot of YouTubers do forget that they have an impression. So
Yeah, and it could be the first time someone's seen something, and you can really influence how people do things. And it's like, it's not about impressing others. It should be a tool or a key to unlock new adventures, new skills. I mean, I can't express to you like the feeling I got inside when I found a beaver dam in Sweden. I mean,
I can imagine.
I just got very excited, and it's like to some people it's just a pile of sticks that have been chewed.
Yeah,
I was
man,
like, but
it's
to
a
me
beaver dam.
that was insanely cool coming across beaver
Yeah.
activity. And then I couldn't stop seeing it everywhere I went, and it was just like
It's
that
just something
excitement was the
we're-
reason I went.
we're
I
not
filmed a
used to it, are
video.
we?
I filmed a video. I took pictures. I talking to you about the trip on this podcast. I didn't go to Sweden for any of those things. I didn't go to film a video. I didn't go to
No.
take pictures. I didn't go so that I had something to talk about on this podcast. I went to experience Sweden and to experience nature. And this is all a byproduct of that. So it's the same thing as the charity comment you had, which I really like. It's about the motivations, the reason you go. You don't go on a trip
Exactly.
to boast about it. You might boast about it because you had the best time, but the reason you're going is to go on the trip. It's not about having something to go on about because you want to impress people. That might be a byproduct, but your motivation is pure. It's to go out and experience nature, to go out and experience a trip, to put in
Exactly.
the miles, to have the hardships, to fight the elements. And I think that's why I went. I went for an adventure, and it was an adventure.
Exactly, and I'd completely agree with that. And I think it's, you know, if anything, it's definitely not to impress, it's to motivate. And I think that's what a lot of my content is. And sometimes, like I was just saying, it might sound like we're a little bit, oh, this is really dangerous, this is this, but we're only highlighting that so you have the best time possible when you go out, because you can learn kind of from our mistakes. So you can say, actually, do you know what, I'm not going to strap all of my bags to the inside of the canoe, because that adds extra weight, and if I need to get the bags out quickly, I can't do that. But what I will do is have smaller bags, connected to the outside of my bags, so outside of the canoe, on the rigging or whatever. But it's little things like that we're trying to share. And it's funny how, again, a lot of people might say, oh, you just do videos for the views, and it's like, no, I'm just trying to motivate people to get out. Yeah, well, that's it. Some of my videos might get 1,000, 2,000. Some might get, I
think my Sweden trip has 400, and it's like,
really,
I think at least 4 of those or 5 of those are me, and at least 10 of them are my mum.
Yeah, I'm probably like 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah. So
because honestly, it's annoying because when we go to places like this, they're magical moments, and they're little glimpses in time that we can look back on ourselves as well. And hopefully it does motivate people to go out. Hopefully it highlights the amazing adventures that you can have, not only in places like the River Avon, despite it being so inhospitable, full of E. coli, and the residents very against canoes. But still, it is a fantastic, wild time, and it incorporated all of those bushcrafty bits. There was times when we were going along, sawing branches out of the way just to get through, real trailblazing, lifting boats over fallen tree trunks, having to go along and scouting out for weirs, and then going up onto the bank and bushwhacking through nettles, and it's a real adventure. And none of this is meant to, like you say, impress people or
deter them. It's not,
them. Exactly,
we're not deterring. I think what Liam is really accurately hitting on is that these are things that we are highlighting in order to make you guys have the best time when you go out and do it, so that you're prepared. Because actually, if you know that you're going to have difficulty at this particular stretch or whatever, you can plan for that, and you can minimize the stress it causes, minimize the risk, minimize the aggravation, and maximize the enjoyment, the adventure. And by having the best time, it will then lead you to have more adventures, because you'll think, that was amazing, I can't wait to do something else. It will push me to do more, maybe do a further trip, one that's more remote. I mean, the place in Sweden, we would come across little wilderness houses that were obviously people that owned a second home to be on the lake, and it's there were patches of wilderness, and then there were areas with these cabins and houses, and it's at times I was I would quite happily be somewhere with none of these places people can only access by boat, because I wanted just pure wilderness. But actually I was it's stunning. It doesn't matter that there's a cabin 3 miles away that I can see, or a house there with a ferry crossing on the one road on the entire lake. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's still beautiful, and it's at the end of the day, I was just blown away by the beauty of the environment, and it was breathtaking most of the time. So I'll take it.
That's it. And I think you just highlighted another great point, that no matter how much myself and Tom might try and different YouTubers might try and showcase these things, there's nothing quite like doing it yourself. And you will, we might say at points, make sure you've got a saw, or make sure you've got dry bags. The only real way is going out and doing it. And the amount of freedom you feel when you're in just a canoe, whether it's on the English rivers, whether it's in a lake, a little pond, or even, a reservoir, or out in the sticks in Sweden, in Canada, in the Ardèche in France. I mean, the journey just starts with getting in the boat. And I think the biggest thing about it is, like we've said, so being prepared, not only in terms of kit, being prepared in terms of local knowledge, laws, and kind of group dynamics, even route planning, like you just said. But there's also an aspect of, I guess you could say, fitness preparation. But then canoeing itself helps build that fitness as well, which is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, the amount of working out your upper body gets when you're canoeing for 2 or 3 days simultaneously, and you really do get into the rhythm of the water, don't you? And it's
You
funny
do,
how
you do.
how you can have these little expectations of, like you said, like, oh, really want to be in a wild place. And I often feel like this when I'm going on a UK river trip. I'm like, oh, it sucks because I'm just going to be going through Derby town centre at one point along the river or something, you know. But then actually, when you get on the river, you feel like you're in a different wilderness of its own, and there's so many
Yeah.
miles of waterways to explore. It's insane, and it really does up your navigation skills as well.
It does. It does. I mean, I would say make sure you plan your route ahead of time, but always have a backup. So
Yeah.
we had two versions of the route. We had because we weren't sure. Like Katie was a fantastic canoeist. She's always been into water sports, so she was the best canoeist on the group.
Love it.
But obviously we didn't know the strengths of everybody, so I luckily could make up for my slightly more sort of brawn over brain approach to canoeing because I've got a lot of upper body strength, so I was able to just sort of brute force and ignorance my way through. But we had multiple versions of the route depending on how fast we were moving, and also depending on variables we had no control over. We had a version for sun, and we had a version for bad inclement weather, and we ended up having to use the backup because we couldn't go as far as we wanted. And each day we would relook at the map and look at where we are, where we wanted to be, and work out a fair and reasonable distance that we could travel according to the conditions, the weather, the direction of the wind, because the wind kept changing directions, all of that sort of thing, and the tiredness of the group. Do we need a lie-in? Is someone flagging? Does someone need a bit of a cooked breakfast in the morning just to pick them up beforehand? In which case, we're going to light a fire, so it's going to be later leaving. We're not going to have as much time in the water. So we were on the fly amending our plans, but we did actually go there with multiple versions of the trip planned. Yes. So we had if we were going really fast, we could try and get to here.
Push a little bit further.
But then we had a backup that was a much more reasonable distance that we could achieve even in terrible weather. And I just think that's the sort of planning and route mapping for this sort of trip that actually it pays dividends when you're there. We'll go to plan C, we won't go to campsite X, we'll go to campsite Y that's 5 kilometers closer and sheltered from the wind. And it was 100%. That sort of on-the-fly decision, and the fact that we had the routes already all planned that allowed the trip to just be easy. It was fine.
We had to do a similar kind of thing because, again, we're very much on river trips over here. When we go as a bigger group, we're very much going point A to point B, but we don't, point B can change at any point. Again, on this trip, actually, I had to leave a day early. It was my birthday. We woke up on the morning of my birthday. Joe Poshrat had been extremely ill. We think he contracted E. coli. He'd been very ill that night. Ellie had been suffering a little bit from a little bit of a bug, and just feeling run down. So I took the opportunity and said, well, look, Joe needs to get back. Ellie's not feeling great. We'll get off at the next place. I'll go back, get the truck, come up, pick up the canoes, take both of Joe and Ellie back home. And it's been able to adapt and overcome situations like that. And you can only really do that if you know your route, if you know where you're going, and if you have reasonable kind of goals, because you can really overstretch yourself when you're planning. For example, we did expect to go from Warwickshire down to like kind of Leamington Spa area. I think that's I think I'm right in saying that. And for just for your reference and for the listeners' references, and the viewers, I guess now, we got from the top of Warwickshire to about the middle of Warwickshire in 2.5 days. It was that rough going, honestly. We did about, I don't know, a quarter to a third of the distance we thought we'd done because it was such hard paddling. It was narrow, the water was low, it was overgrown, unmanaged. There was so many weirs with no portages. So like you said, having that ability to change your plan or having a different plan. So we already knew that there were different stops along the way that we could definitely get out at different boat clubs and different actual official portage points and different actual like kind of marina areas.
Yeah.
So we had those routes. So when Joe had become ill, we said, well, we only know we're about a 30-minute paddle away from the next out, rather than having to turn around and thinking that, oh, it might be best to go to the one that we've just passed, which was 2 hours back. So yeah, it's very much similar for you guys in Sweden, I guess, because it's easy to it's easy for the weather to turn, or it to take longer, or actually the current's flowing quick, you got the wind in your back and you're absolutely flying, and suddenly you find yourself much further along in your place, then occurs different travel logistics, doesn't it? It kind of
we did an out and back trip about. So we hired canoes at the south of the lake and we travelled north. And then once we reached midpoint of our trip, the plan was turn around and come back. We quickly realised we needed to turn around and come back sooner than the halfway point, because we were going to be travelling against the wind on the way back and things would take longer. We then further got the day with the heavy wind and the rain that forced us to spend half a day less paddling. So we ended up returning to a spot we'd already been to in order to wild camp near it, which was the day with the weather. Again, Emma hadn't been well. It was just one of those things. All the factors were against us getting to where we wanted to be that day. And instead of pushing on and doing the macho thing of going, oh, I couldn't manage it, it'll be fine, which would have put every one of us at risk. It was about making the right choices, just not worth it. So you just amend it. And then we just changed the route. We went to plan C, and I'm so glad we did, because then the next day the sun came out. It was picture postcard. We canoed a short distance to another island that we hadn't camped at on this trip. I knew it was there because I'd been there on the previous trip there. And we had the best time at this island. It was just gorgeous. I love that. And it was just like perfect, and we got to explore the island. It was so worth it. And actually, you just got to think that there's a reason for things, and if the weather's halting travel, you just got to go with it, because you're at nature's mercy. You might as well just go with the flow.
That's exactly the kind of thought I had with Joe when I knew he was ill. And I mean, really, in hindsight, he probably should have gone to hospital. He was that bad. He was, really, really bad. And it took him a good week or two to fully even start to think about recovering. So yeah, it was a close call on that. And we think that was just E. coli in the water. And we think some of the boat water had splashed onto something that either got ingested or, on the top of a water bottle or something like that. So, it's very important what you say there about just being adaptable. And, like we've said, the points we're raising are not to put people off. They're to give people those scenarios, like you just said there, the picture postcard morning, or the picture postcard day, the island where you had the most beautiful camp, where things just went right after a day where probably beforehand, the previous night, you're probably thinking, oh my God, this is one of the the worst times to have spent.
I called it type C fun that day, but I mean, I was fine because I wasn't feeling ill. And I was quite happy to put tarps and stuff up and light fires. So I was sort of just making sure everyone else was okay. And then
yes, of course,
we all enjoyed it as a result, because you've got to remember, if you're going as a group, it's not just your own enjoyment you've got to think about. You've got to think about the whole group, and you're only as strong as your sort of, it's that old saying about hiking, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And actually, none of us were weak links, because we all brought things to the group. But if someone's struggling on a day, or they're not well, or they're feeling tired, go at their pace. Go at the pace of the slowest person, because if you're pushing them, they will have a terrible time. You might have a lovely day, and then they'll get home and think, I never want to go canoeing with that person again. They were awful. They just left me. So it's about the needs of the group, rather than just the sort of selfish blind, you keep going because you want to break a record or you want to impress people. It's about considering the fun factor for everybody, because if you're like me, I would have had fun whatever we were doing in Sweden, because I was in my element. It was bushcraft. There was stuff for me to collect. There was trees to look at. I had my knife to carve stuff. I could light fires in fire pits. I would have had fun whatever. So I was quite happy to just go with the flow, because I knew I would enjoy it. And actually,
absolutely,
I knew Emma would enjoy it, because she's become like a proper woodswoman since we've
I
had
love it.
our forest. So
The same with Ellie, actually. The
yeah.
same with Ellie. But there comes a lot of responsibility as well when you're kind of taking that role of being not organizer, but being the person who kind of takes role of responsibility within a group. And that is where it's nice to have a group of people where you can all share that responsibility. And like you said, if someone is feeling a little bit low, it's always advisable, go at their pace. It's not worth breaking a group dynamic just for one person's ego. No. And especially when you're on a trip, you want to go out and enjoy yourself, and that's why we bring things like you said earlier, why you can bring a bit more extra kit when you're in a canoe, because generally speaking you want to actually enjoy your time out. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about going out. It allows you to, like we said, not only access these places, but it allows you to explore them with some other kit that you normally couldn't bring. And I know there's so many different bits of kit we could go into talking about what we bring on canoes, but actually this time I went fairly lightly. I actually picked up a really nice, I think it's a 3-man, but it's more like it's basically a 2-man tent. OEX
they
tent.
always over-egg it, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Little OEX tent, but it's lovely, low profile, really easy to put up. It's got an inner and an outer, and we just had most of our gear in dry bags, the expedition unit dry bags, and some barrels. But is there any bits of kit that you wouldn't go without when you're going canoeing? Because I think that's something that we should briefly touch on before we finish up, because I think definitely. It links everything together about what you just said there, or what we've spoken about, being prepared, making sure you enjoy yourself, and also having a responsible time out. I think they all link together basically on the kit, don't they?
They do. I mean, there's a couple of absolute essentials, and I'm not going to talk about everything, because obviously you need a full camping outfit, and we just don't have time to go through every little tiny detail down to my head torch and spare cordage.
Your bushcraft kit's your bushcraft kit, isn't it, at the end of the day? And we generally probably both pack similar basic bushcraft things. But
there are a couple of things I bought or changed around for water trips.
Yeah.
So my small forest axe, obviously I was the only one bringing an axe and a saw on the trip. So my small forest axe, I switched out the leather mask for a Kydex mask, because if it gets damp, the leather can make the axe rust. But that wasn't the main reason. It was actually because of the baggage handlers. You have to make sure that if you're traveling with axes and tools, you have to label them and make them securely packaged so they can't do anyone any damage on the travel.
Or come through the bag.
In my first trip to Sweden 10 years ago, my little hatchet I brought with me, they were so rough with the bag that the hatchet had actually cut through the leather sheath on the travel. So I switched the sheath for a Kydex one. I found there's a guy on Bushcraft Trade Post who makes really good little Kydex sheaths for Gransfors axes. So that was my first change, was actually just to get the axe there safely. I then selected a belt knife from stainless steel because I didn't want to have to deal with rust. So I went for AEBL. I actually opted for a York knife for this trip. Very, very good pocket knife. So I didn't have to worry about it. Not pocket knife, belt knife. I didn't have to worry about it rusting. So stainless steel, I would say, is a good option for canoe travel. Going for an all-weather style knife.
And if you're not, you've really got to be on top of toolkit, like kit maintenance, so bring some gun oil, really, if you're bringing an 01 carbon steel blade or anything similar. Good shout. I brought my AEBL's Feared Wood. Sorry to interject there.
No, sorry. Feared Wood's great option, and the AEBL is just such a good steel for this sort of thing. It's rugged, it's reliable. I then, because I didn't want to wear that when I was canoeing, I did the first day. And,
likewise.
I was just like, you know what, I don't want to wear my belt knife while I'm actually doing the canoeing part. So I built, luckily I'd thought ahead of this. I see you've got your little rooster, which I'm dying to get a hold of.
That's what I had. That is also AEBL. Big shout out to Field and Steel. But that's what I was kind of EDCing.
So I built a little pocket carry for, luckily I knew this would be a thing. So I put together a lanyard. I bought a Hestra clip, just a carabiner. And then I put 550 cord, which I looped over in 2 strands. And then I'd got little tiny clips, like keyring clips. And on
Yep.
one keyring, I had an Exotac Bic lighter case that's a waterproof case in
Nice.
emergency orange, to keep my lighter dry. So at
Yeah,
all
good
times I
man.
had that clipped to my belt and inside my pocket. So even if it fell out my pocket, it would just dangle. I then had
Dangle,
an
yeah.
orange, emergency orange, light my fire steel, and
Yeah.
a
With the striker inbuilt.
Victorinox with the striker inbuilt, and then a
Yeah.
Victorinox pocket knife. All of that
Good man.
clipped to my belt on 550 paracord, and that
Nice.
always was something I just put together. That's what I carry in my pocket at all
Yeah.
times if I'm in the boat on a canoe.
Yes.
Obviously, the knife, I wouldn't choose a lock knife if I was in the UK just EDCing it. I'd choose a UK legal slip joint. But that can easily just be clipped on and off and swapped out. So that's tool-wise. That they were really good choices. And then I had a saw as well.
And I think a saw is essential on a canoe trip, especially here in the rivers. I think it's something that probably, again, you could get away with one boat having them over there. But I think over here in the river, most boats should probably have a saw in them because it's very easy to get snagged or come across a snag, or sometimes there's just so many bloody snags that you actually need every boat on it. But yeah, I think the kind of little safety, I guess you could call it safety necklace or whatever, very similar idea to what Ray's always advocated and what I've got myself. Mine's on a little a cork float.
a Coke float.
A Coke float. It's on a
cork
cork float. And that's just because obviously if it drops out of the river, it will just float along. But that's just actually, that had my splinter on it, which was a fixed knife, but had my splinter on it, little whistle and a flint and steel on there as well.
Lovely.
Really handy little things. But no, I like that idea about having the Bic lighter in a waterproof case, because to be honest, even though we're bushcrafting, you're not trying to impress anyone. If you need to get a fire going really quickly, you'd be stupid to not just use a lighter, honestly. I mean, you're not going to be there being like, my girlfriend's dying of hypothermia. 1 second, I've got to do a bird's nest. You know?
Let me just do a bow drill. I'll be an hour.
Leatherman was the other thing I was going to say
tool.
about I don't have an actual Leatherman. Mine's a knockoff Leatherman. I think it cost me it's a good knockoff, but it's just a different brand. But the fact that has stuff like pliers, for example, there's people fishing. If someone accidentally gets a hook in somewhere, you got pliers. If you come across a bit of wire that's across the river, anything. It's even got fish descaler on there. But a multi-tool I found is really handy to have just in my dry pack, like in one of the zipper bits.
Yeah, for sure. So moving on from tools, I agree a Leatherman is fantastic. I had the multi-tool of the Swiss Army knife, but
Nice.
I think pliers would have been a good option actually for me to have. But you mentioned about keeping it dry. Now, I made sure that everything was in a big duffel bag that was waterproof. So having it in an easy access duffel that can keep the majority of water out. You can get some with taped seams as well, so they're completely waterproof. But then within my duffel, I also had completely sealed Ortlieb dry bags. So everything was contained within dry bags within a dry bag.
That's me too.
I also had a day pack. So I had just a Maxpedition day pack. But within that, I had dry bags. And in the day pack, I kept what actually, when I went there before, Black Wolf insisted we had one, just a ditch kit, so just a dry kit. So Craig from Black Wolf Survival made a really good point. It's always worth keeping a spare set of clothes dry, a firelighter, something you can, like a tool or something in there.
Just a little go
basically
bag.
A little go bag inside your day pack that's in a dry bag and stays dry regardless of anything else that happens. So that's the next advice I would have an emergency bag in a dry bag.
There's a really funny story of a Meat Eater podcast, and I suggest people go and check out Meat Eater. They're great. But they were talking about, it was either that or it might have been Close Encounters in Steve Ranella's book, about kind of close calls in the wild and survival situations. And basically, a boat drifted off from the shore when they pulled up at an island, like yourselves. They were pulled up at a little remote island, got out of the boat, and the wind quickly changed. And by the time they turned around, The boats
Oh,
were
no.
about 200 yards out going. And the only thing they had was like
That's
this
a
tiny
bad
little,
day.
tiny little bag of stuff, which managed to keep them going. But yeah, very, very important point.
Mm.
And I think
I just think it's worth having.
I pack similarly to you. On the side of my canoe by my seat, I have a really small little dry bag that's got a little bit of emergency food in it, a little bit of, it's got my ferro rod in it, it's got a compass in there, it's also just got like a little kind of microfiber towel in there, and it's just got a few little bits just in case I got into trouble and the boat was going down. I can grab that and swim to shore.
Yeah.
It's also got my phone in there as well, for example. So
Yeah, nice. And I made sure, you said about emergency food, we had we cooked fresh food like pastas and stuff while we were there, but I had enough food for us all to have an extra few days there quite comfortably with dehydrated expedition meals from Expedition Foods, just because if you get stranded there, at least you've got backups.
Well, boiling water is quite accessible when you're by a river.
Yeah,
hopefully you can boil it. But
about water though, one of the pieces of kit I bought for this trip and then found absolutely invaluable was a Grail bottle. So I mean, obviously any type of modern filter will work well, and combine that with coarse filtration or boiling, and you've got a pretty sort of sorted water purification system. But the lake was so clean that actually we boiled water in the morning for our food, and for cooking we boiled water. But we could use the Grail bottle to scoop and purify on the go, and it was brilliant. I'm really a big fan of that.
Well, I know Joe was a little bit dubious about the Grail after his experience, but I don't personally think it was the Grail that did it. But if it was, it might have been that, to be honest, the water that was getting filtering was probably needed a pre-filter, needed to go through something like a millbank into the Grail and then probably still be boiled. Just because of how dirty that water is. Like, seriously, you only got to get 1 part per million through and you're already going to be ill.
There's always going to be experiences with anything, whether it's soya, catadin. There's going to be times when it fails, but I had nothing
personally
but good experiences.
I think it was that was at the bottom of the canoe, or had got knocked down into the bottom of the canoe where there was a bit of the sludge, and then picked back up, and maybe the mouth cap, even though it had been wiped clean, it's one of those things.
And it's easy to. My brothers relied on them in South America as well.
Invaluable.
He bought one for his travels, and he'll be taking it back on his next adventure as well. So, I mean, I've personally had good experiences, but as with all these things, different people's experiences may vary. But I liked the Grail bottle when I've been using it.
I think with all filters, you've just got to have another level of cleanliness, and also don't be scared to boil it if you are thinking, that was a gopping pond that I've just taken out of. Then just filter it and then boil it. It ain't going to do you any harm. If you haven't got access to a way of boiling it, then really you should be okay. But just make sure, what you're drinking from is clean, and all the mouthpiece of the filter itself is nice and clean. Because I think that is a mistake that's made too often. They might filter the water but then put it into a vessel that's been just like washed
even
in
just
the lake.
having it dirty on your hands, even just touching the threads, like if you're transferring from a billy can to a water bottle, and the billy can's got some dirt on the outside of it, and it touches your threads, and then you put the threads in your mouth, you're gonna potentially run into some trouble there. So it's just being aware and having a solid system, and it will go wrong at times. However experienced you are, there are always times when things don't go according to plan.
If you get stomach bugs, that's where your first aid kit and your little medicine pouch can come in handy, isn't it?
I think they're really important. But also, there were days when it was really sunny, so I had a wide-brimmed hat, because normally I'm a cap guy or a flat cap guy like yourself. But when you're out on the water, there's no shade, and you're exposed, and it would be very easy to get burnt or get sunstroke or whatever. So having a wide-brimmed hat on a hot day, they're brilliant.
With a tail.
So I have a Fjällräven sort of boonie hat, and it did me really well in Sweden. I thought it was really handy.
The water just reflects it up, doesn't it, as well? That's one of the biggest things.
It does, and the wind, you get a lot of wind burn as well. So having a backup tarp is just
Yeah.
invaluable. The day when we were, the more
Any kind of
tarps
backup
we
shelter.
had, the better. We were able to make a little, it was the only hospitable place
Yeah.
for miles, because we'd managed to make a little tarp city, and it looked like a shanty town. It really was a mess. It
That's
was
the best
not
way,
picture
though.
It was not picture perfect Instagram tarp pitching,
That's
but
where
it
all the
kept us
vibes happen,
dry,
though.
and it went up quick enough that we didn't all get soaked to the bone
Exactly.
in the time of putting it up.
Yeah.
And we were able to have a fire in the middle. I've got a few burn holes in my tarps, and I don't care because it dried us all out.
Well, that's where things like having a cheap tarp, like you just said, one cheap tarp per person on a trip like that can come in absolutely clutch. Because if weather does come in very hard, you can't all be huddled under the one person's tarp who decided to bring it. One, it's not fair to them, and it's just stupid.
Yeah, exactly. We even used some as wind blocks to cut the wind
Yeah.
down, because as I said, it was like gusting like 60 miles an hour. It's mad.
Yeah.
And so we used some as wind blocks. We had some as roofs. We just made a little town out of tarps.
Yeah, it's
tarp
really
town, tarp
important.
city. So having backups for shelter is really important. Wet and dry shoes. I used a pair of wet
Always.
shoes. I mean, I'm a croc guy, but be careful not to lose your croc in your canoe. But
Oh,
I had
yes.
a pair of
And
shoes
blisters.
for and blisters. I had a pair of shoes to wear in the canoe, and then I kept another pair of shoes dry for when I'm on shore. And just foot hygiene and care is quite important.
Well, it's funny you say about Crocs, because it was the first time I'd wore Crocs for a canoe trip, and they just blistered me to hell. So I won't be doing that again. I'll be using them for the beach time, like when I'm at camp, kind of walking around. They're light enough to just chuck on the side of the pack or whatever. But
Exactly.
I think before I'd been using wet shoes, which I always found very good. The only thing is, when you are inevitably walking up, they get full of sludge and stuff, but you
And
can't win
sand,
in all
yeah.
respects, can you? But
No.
I just normally keep my boots in a nice waterproof bag. So I have my boots if I got a portage, and then that's really it. So yeah, very much the same for you, man. Very much the same.
Yeah. And then the last point is, you won't necessarily need this in all situations. I bought a Garmin InReach Mini 2 for this trip, and it was an investment. It was a couple of £100 just to buy the unit, and then I have to pay for a subscription. But I've got it on the cheapest option, so it's just ticking over.
Yes.
But it allowed me to help plan the trip with maps, with their online mapping and satellite imagery. And it's the peace of mind of knowing there's an SOS button. So if you did get lost, or if someone fell ill, or someone hurt themselves, or if, like, I'm using an axe and I'm days away from other people, it's nice to know that on my buoyancy aid there's an emergency thing. And then combined with it, I had a very, very, very solid first aid kit, and each member of our team had a first aid kit of their own. But I had a group one with a cat tourniquet, with trauma fix dressings. It's a very well stocked first aid kit that I've built up over years of doing first aid courses and using them in the woods, and actually being a first aider, a paediatric first aider for schools. So I've built up a lot of useful items to have in a first aid kit. So having a robust first aid kit and a device for contacting. I mean, I could actually send, because obviously my mum, bless her, she's a saint, but she's going to worry about her son. Regardless, I could be just like doing the safest thing in the world. I could be visiting the library and my mum's still going to worry. So it was nice to be able to send a check-in message, even if I didn't have phone signal, just to let her know that we're at camp, we're safe. So that in itself, the peace of mind it gives family members, was worth the price of admission.
Yeah, well, letting people know your plans is like one of the most important things about a route like that, and you just touched on it there, because so many times people just, don't even touch base, and I can understand people want to go off solo, off the grid and stuff like that, but we do have responsibilities. We have responsibilities on the people who have to rescue you if things go wrong as well. We just take it for granted that, oh, that really sucks, they had to get rescued, but what about the people who had to do the rescue? But yeah, things like you just said, the Garmin. I have a very simple little E-Trex one.
Nice.
It's just really, really simple old one, but again, gives you the peace of mind that you can know exactly where you are, and this has a very primitive kind of SOS-y kind of thing on it. But yeah, very handy little bits of kit. And I think even going down to first aid kit, people might think, well, tourniquets are a bit wild, like what the hell? But if you've got an axe, really, you do deserve to have one. And also, you're walking through the bush, trip hazards. It only takes one sharp pine stick, and you've got yourself a big puncture wound. And I think things like that again just aid into the actual peace of mind of you as the person, there with a group of people. And for me, I always make sure the first aid kit is accessible. If
and
so
that
many
others
people,
know where it is.
yeah, so many people have a first aid kit, but it's like in their bag. And I'm like, well, this is the worst place for it to be when we're actually all in need of it. And I think I liked the idea of having different people designated with different classes of first aid kit as well. So, you're not kind of doubling up, because that is one thing that's always hard to do as a group dynamic, is not double pack things, but making sure you each have kind of access to certain necessities as well.
Oh, we fully nerded out on an Excel spreadsheet that we shared with each other. So all four of us
Good
had
man.
access to the Excel spreadsheet, and we all listed everything we were bringing. And that way we could see where duplicates were and remove them, and we could see if there was anything missing. And I just made sure that we had what we needed. But there's no point bringing things in the first aid kit you don't know how to use either. And things like a tourniquet are a bit controversial, because obviously that people don't always use them correctly, and
It's
they can
better
cause
to
risk.
use one.
But
it's better to have one.
no, I'd rather have one and not, and again not need it, or if it's
To be honest,
life and
I'd
death,
rather
you're going to want to use it.
I'd rather someone put it on even if they didn't know what they were doing. Like in reality, like if I'm going to potentially lose my leg, for example, at that point I'm already like 9/10 of the way in, right?
I'll tell you what, this is a complete aside, but I can. I don't know why I'm sharing this with the general public, but I sometimes get really like vivid nightmares.
Yep.
I
That
had
happens
a
to the
nightmare
best
the
of
other
us,
day. No, genuinely, this was like, I thought it was real. So when I woke up and found I was alive, I was actually really positively surprised.
Relieved.
I was like, oh, nice, that's really good. But yeah, it was just like a stupid dream where like I was cutting up some food to cook, and I ended up, my actual kitchen knife, I've got this really nice Japanese Damascus knife that I bought when me and Emma first moved in together. And in my dream, the Damascus delaminated, and it was like a tinfoil thin edge, and I just obviously grazed like an artery in my dream with it. But in my dream, I actually like could feel like the blood pumping out. I woke up and it was like so viscerally realistic. I was like, I really need to not watch any more horror films for a while.
Don't use it for
So
Sunday
funny.
roast this week.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not getting that one out the drawer for a while. So, but yeah. So the end of the day, like we've talked about some really heavy things here, but I just want to reassure everyone that's listening. It was an awesome experience. I cannot wait to go back. Sweden was amazing. Yeah. The people were hospitable. They were lovely. The nature was just vast and so breathtaking. Seeing things like beaver dams in the wild was just insane.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And just being able to be on a 7-day trip and actually do some miles and put bushcraft skills into practice. The fact that we had bad weather and some things like the difficulty of getting that firewood back to camp, the having to dry us all out by the fire, it was doing bushcraft for real. It wasn't just playing around in my woods.
Honestly, yeah, they're the memories that make it.
Amazing. Yeah, and I would go back tomorrow if I could. Yeah. And I think just my message to you guys is go out, have your adventures, do them, but plan for them and really do your legwork first. Make sure that you're maximising your enjoyment by not planning it properly first.
Yes. Yeah, and I can speak first-handedly for that, because as much as you can try to plan certain things, there'll always be little things that do go wrong, but planning maximises the amount of enjoyment you can have out of a trip like that. And we had encounters with very inhospitable landowners. We had one instance where a person got really quite angry because we were crossing a little bit by the side of their land. We didn't even notice their land at first, but we had to. There was a weir. There was literally no other way to get around it. This weir was like 10 foot tall. But it's just having the pragmatic approach to be able to tackle those things sensibly, having the preparation to be able to enjoy yourself on a canoe trip, like you just said, whether it's the kit or preparing the group or having the right knowledge about the local environment, I think it's really important to just take it as it comes. Don't be put off by some of the things that we're saying about medical emergencies or bad weather. I just see a bramble there. Hello. But yeah, oh, look at her.
She's
but no,
quite
I
gorgeous.
think it's one of these tasks in bushcraft canoeing, or one of these things in bushcraft that can really open a window. And I think, we need to explore it more together we need to go out actually and hit the water together. But if you are thinking about doing it, just be sensible. Maybe think about going out with a guide. Wear the right PPE, whether that's buoyancy aids, helmets if needed, have a first aid kit, and just go and enjoy yourself. Like Tom said, go and research as much as you can. Sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes it's actually easier to research things abroad than it is here in the UK, because things are so under wraps. I know there's many miles of the waterway which are just inaccessible over here, but hopefully things will change in the future. And don't be put off by doing a bit of bushwhacking. Despite us only getting a quarter of the distance we wanted to get on our trip, I tell you what, we had the best time in that little quarter, because it was proper canoeing. At times it really felt like I think we probably were the first people that canoed that stretch in maybe 20 years, honestly.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Some of the root structures on these fallen trees and stuff, and you absolutely know no one's been through there. It's phenomenal.
It's amazing. So just go and have fun and have an adventure, and do it safely and responsibly. And if you get an angry landowner, just be polite and don't rise to it, basically, and just be apologetic.
Yeah, there was one point where it almost got the better of me, and I was like, "Stop shouting!" But yeah, we managed to get through, and I think there was just more to that one than came to the eye. But
some people just get very angry very quickly.
It is what it is.
Keeping a cool head is essential.
But my man, it is perfect to have a little chat with you. It's been really lovely to speak to you, and honestly, I can't wait to catch up again soon.
Yeah, me too. And hopefully we've added to the conversation as well, because we did think about, we could just tell you all the stories of our respective trips, but hopefully by us going through the things we've learned over the years of going out and doing bushcraft and being on trips, whether they're guided or unguided, hopefully we've added to the conversation and not just rehashed what other people have already said, because actually we do place a real big focus on giving people the best opportunity to enjoy their trips, and by us talking about the things maybe we've done wrong in the past, hopefully some people who are new to this might learn from our mistakes and learn to actually have the best time.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, that is exactly what it's about. We're here to inspire, and hopefully you've drawn some inspiration from that chat, whether it's to do with the gear or whether it's to do with even places where to go. But yeah, just like I said before, take it every step as it comes and just go out and enjoy the water. Tom will definitely have to get out on the water ourselves together and maybe film a little bit of a video. We could always film an episode from the boat. That could be quite cool. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for listening, and I do hope you enjoy our little chat about, like Tom said, a little bit of an injection about our trips, but mainly about canoeing as an aspect of bushcraft. And it really is one of the most enjoyable kind of aspects of bushcraft that you can do, because I think it's just another string to your bow.
It's just so rewarding to unlock all of that vast places you can't access without a boat, and it's just such a good adventure. So yeah, do us a favor, go out and have a little canoe adventure yourselves, and if you've done any amazing ones that we should know about, just write in, let us know. We'd love to hear your stories, your favorite places to go. There's a whole world out there, and we've only explored a teeny tiny bit of it, and I can't wait to do my next trip.
And it's sure as hell easier than walking, that's for one thing. you get a lot further. So look, guys, like Tom said, definitely share your adventures if you've been up to any, or if you've got any in the pipeline. And Tom, we'll have to catch up soon and have a proper chinwag.
Absolutely. I've got a hungry puppy to feed.
Yeah, that's it. And I might be with Feared Woods or one of the Thornwood lads next. But we'll have to definitely get something in the diary camp-wise. It's, again, been long overdue. So,
it's been lovely
Until
to talk
then,
to you,
my
mate,
dude.
and I'll see you soon.
Yes, and thank you for listening, guys.
Bye.
Ciao.